Hello, in this video we're going to talk about looking for artists for a particular job, or if this is you, would your folio get seen? So if I'm looking for a concept artist that's got 2D skills, looking at the artist tab, I see what comes up. I can also put in things like the country and different options and skills. So maybe I'm looking for someone who does 2D character design. Got character design. I could put in 2D in here, 2D animation, anything like that, and I can see what comes up. Now most of these look pretty decent. They're fleshed out folios. It's probably coming up with the pro accounts first, just because people are paying for their folio to be seen. But as you can see, not all pro accounts show up. Here's one that's not a pro account, and they've got pretty decent stuff. So it doesn't always favouritize the paid. So I'm just having a look through, and most of these are great. They're all based in the UK, and depending on their skill set, I would be thinking, okay, who am I going to employ here? And depending what game I was making as well, who would I be looking for typically. And there's certain things that I wouldn't want. How stylized do I want the game to look? What kind of appeal do I want it to have? Now, all of this looks really nice. I really like these trees here. So I'm going to follow this person and maybe, give them a message or something like that. I can always have a look to see if they're available. So it's freelance environment artist, and not typically character stuff, but I could put in a filter for character. And we've got 2D character design. I think that would be there, but maybe they can also do character stuff because it does say character design there. Let's have a look at this person's folio, in fact, and there's not a lot of character stuff, but anyway, you have to keep looking for things like that. So if your folio's not really got this kind of level of feature in it, then you have to do some work. And a little tip about folios is don't put work in progress up there. Studies and things, I guess, are okay, but as long as you've got a lot of good content to start with, you can reorder your folio so that your best work is seen first, not all the sketch work, because a lot of things stand out more. Now, a lot of this is also very dark. So looking at these, there's a stickman animation test, but that might be relevant, but all of this looks very mixed. You're looking for consistency in style. There's a consistency along this, but they all look very similar. There's a good flexibility here, as well as some similarity and consistency, so this looks like quite a nice one as well. This one looks very arty, and hard to say whether the lighting and things would work in a game, and how much time would one spend making all these. So these might be good as like a kind of cover design or something like that, but it's hard to say how that would fit into game production. Stuff like this is very kind of beginner type, like the bad proportions. There's no lighting here. These are just some cubes thrown in. It looks like a work in progress, and very unfinished looking work. It's not very polished up at all. It looks like not all of it got any color. Don't be posting stuff like this because it's not going to get any attraction. At least it's up here in this search criteria, so you will get seen, but you'll get seen in this sort of light because artists who are looking for new recruits don't want to spend too much time clicking on folios and trying to see, if they're going to back up their work with a big text box about why their work's not good. They can't spend 2 hours looking at the screen because they've got some kind of eye strain. They don't care about these things. They care about you being able to do 4 hours a day of full production at least. So yeah. So these are looking like 3D stuff here, and so on. Now I'm just going to give you a little kind of typical thing to think about when you're making your folio. I'm just going to make a document here, and I'm going to turn my grid off and doodle a little bit. So imagine that you've spent an hour making a character, right? You've made a couple of poses and you've worked out that this is your character you want to make, right? That's it. That's basically what you've done in an hour, and you've put this on Artstation and thought, right, I'm waiting for the likes to come, I'm waiting for the employment, I'm waiting for people to tell me it's awesome because I need reassurance. And you know, you've not bounced it off anyone first, you've just went straight to Artstation, straight to the end goal, and now people have got a bad impression of you because your level of quality is low, right? You're kind of saying, oh, this is good enough for Artstation. I want people to see my amazing work. How I've managed to pick up a pen and apply it to the page, and it should get likes. If I don't get likes, I know I'm rubbish. But you should know you're rubbish anyway because you only spent a couple hours on this and you thought it was good enough for Artstation. This is a problem that it's becoming quite apparent that a lot of people are just posting their work in progress and unfinished work on Artstation. I did it too. When I started my folio, I was like, I'm just going to post whatever I've got kicking around so that I can fill it up a little bit. You'd be as well as having nothing there than, you know, trying to fill it up with stuff. Now, if you've spent an hour making a character like that, there's so many things wrong with it. One, it's unfinished. Two, only spent an hour on it. Like, just imagine this was 1 hour, right, in your mind, and it only took me a minute or so. But what you want to be doing is thinking about all the other cool things, like, you know, what makes it really kind of stand out is like the shape language needs to be a lot more extravagant. You know, you have to really push shapes around and have foreshortening and show that you understand a lot of these artistic type principles, because people are going to want to sell a game. Your game, they're not going to like get a good impression if they see something that's very lackluster. So the longer you can spend making something and thinking about, you know, how you're going to make this look much more badass, and, you know, push the shapes and really kind of make this stand out a bit more, you're going to spend a lot more time on it, and add more levels of detail, you know, primary, secondary and tertiary shapes and small details that really show that you've, you know, thought about this. And usually, like, your first idea will never work. You have to do a bit more kind of work to it. And if you're just you know, happy with what you've done and you can't push it any further, therefore that's all you're going to do, and you'll never really push that boundary, and you're never going to like improve. So you have to identify what's wrong with your work to start with, whether it's the proportions or the pose or something. So this is all very rigid now to me. Like, what I've made here, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know, is this like some sort of hunched over person now? So what if I made the head here? Would that work better? What if I made the chest bigger like that? Would that work better? You know, a lot of these things I need to think about. That, you know, there's no hips here, so I really need to bring these legs down. And what I could do is just, you know, rescale this and think about it a little bit differently. So we'll start to block in some shapes and think about how all these shapes connect up, really kind of make some perspective happen. By like making the things further away much smaller, and, you know, bending the legs a little bit more by doing something like this. And then getting rid of bits like that and really pushing shapes around. Now, you can't think that just because you've done something different from yesterday, like you feel amazing because you now understand perspective a little bit better. You can't just think, I'm going to post that because I now know something better and the world should see me as amazing now. It doesn't work like that, because there's so many people in the world trying to get attention that in order to get attention you really need to stand out a lot more than yesterday's work and put a lot more into it. So if you're still at the stage of trying to learn all these techniques such as perspective and foreshortening, those are the kind of things that you need to be practicing more and doing more life studies, and looking at the shapes and forms of things, how things change based on their angle and your view point to each thing. So this is still looking not great, right? And the thing you can do when you're painting things like this is to flip the canvas horizontally, and you can do that quite easily by going to edit, transform, and flip horizontal. I've got it shortcutted by going into the preferences and changing the shortcut keys, so I'll just do that. And it's a good way to work out where things are going to fail, or how they look at a different angle, and do you need to sort of push them a bit more in places. You can use the puppet warp or the warp tool here to sort of change bits around a bit to see if you can get something a bit better that way. But it has to look right to you. It has to feel like it was someone else made this and you're criticizing it every second of the way. Imagine that you're the art lead and the artist. So the art lead in you is basically saying, yeah, that doesn't work, that's not right, make that better, right? And then the artist basically has to do the job. He's like being paid for it, and you want to improve these things. So a typical thing that you see a lot of with new artists is that they will forget about foreshortening and things overlapping other things or underlapping, and they'll try and draw the full arm as if they want to see the full arm, so everything is very outstretched and stiff. Everything is like got the full proportion, but you don't always see the full proportion of things, and everything's very stiff. Then you don't always see the full arm on poses. You'll see that things cross over in front, things come at the camera, so you don't actually see the side of them, and all those things. So let's go back to Artstation, have another look at some good and bad examples of artwork. So like this work here, for example, is all very side on. They've tried to do a 3/4. None of this has really got consistent style. This is all very muddy. It's very hard to see because it's all very muddy in the background, just all in a white bit of canvas, nothing really to see there. Let's look for another pretty bad example. A good example of bad work, I guess, is what we're looking at. I want you to be able to identify if your work is good enough or bad enough to throw in the bin, good enough for Artstation, or don't do it at all. It's nice seeing the occasional sketch, but it's better if you've finished it and put a lot of work into it, like I was showing a second ago. I'm trying hard to find some bad examples, but it's a bit of a struggle, which is a good sign. Okay, here's one here, and hopefully it's not from anyone we know, but just some tips that this is all very squashed vertically. I think they have copied something, but it already feels very squatted and squashed. There's no lighting in here, it's all very flat. A little bit of lighting hitting here and here, but it's all very flat. It's good that they've got these two rendered images, but what you should do is put your final render image at the top, and then each step going back in time towards the bottom. You want them to see the finished thing right away. Okay, I'm going to go back to this here, and I'm going to keep looking for some bad example of so this one is some sketches, very loose, and they don't feel finished. They're just some sketches, which only tells me that this person is still learning. None of this is valid in any way to for me to hire them, so there's no real point in showing these kind of progress things. They're nice, but they're not worth it. not worth uploading to your Folio. Any sort of life drawing studies, unless it looks amazing and it's one piece that's Folio worthy, you could do that. But most of these life drawing sketches, they are 5-10 minute, maybe 15-20 minute blast sketches to get you into doing that, because that person's only standing for 20 minutes at maximum most of the time, and there's no way you get a good drawing out of that unless you spent more time after it. So here's another one. Typically someone's done some doodles and drawings, and welcome to my sketchbook. It's also a student, so maybe there's a bit of prosperity in some of this, like seeing a student and thinking, well, this person needs a bit of guidance to draw better stuff, but none of this feels finished. It's quite nice to see, but it's just not really high quality. There's only a few hours been put in, not really as much as you'd hope for. Again, something like this is so mixed and it feels unfinished. There's no lighting, the head feels pushed back or something. There's a lot you can criticise. So I think what you should do, if you're getting into art and you want to put stuff online, have a kind of critical mindset, put on your critical cap and come on to Artstation and pretend you're an employer like me looking for potential artists to come and work with you, and don't settle for less. Basically have that mindset that says, yeah, that could be better, there's no background in this one, it's just it's a gradient, this is all very soft, it feels unfinished, where's the rest of the story in this? Things like that. Really have that mindset of, why didn't they finish this piece? Why is it up there if it's not really a Folio piece? It's more of a kind of, here's what I did yesterday. Nobody really cares what you did yesterday, they care what you're doing towards your career. Okay, so that's the mindset. So I'm going to have a look at my own Folio so that I'm not eating my own words or being a hypocrite. So I'll just look at my Folio and you can see I've got a mix of stuff from concept 2D to practice studies that have taken 2 or 3 hours, tools that I've made, other studies that I've done using tools that I've made as well, anatomy studies, pixel art, some old school pixel art stuff. Now I don't really want to be known for this in terms of being hired, but at the end of the day I don't need hired because I've got enough work coming in between making assets and teaching and sometimes getting freelance work through my Folio. So I've done some ZBrush studies, making rocks, environment, isometric, making shaders, the tool that I'm working on and things like that. So I kind of just like my Folio to be about my journey now, like what I'm working on, what I've managed to achieve with what I'm working on, but really to a level that my Folio talks about me as a tool maker and the journey there. So in hindsight, it being about a journey is also a good thing, but keep a journal for that, keep a scrapbook. There's loads of drawings and things you would never put online. If you're just one of those people, you're going to submit everything that you've ever done, then your Folio is going to end up really cluttered. And I recommend taking stuff away every now and again. Let's have a look at some of the trending stuff. So basically, how do you go from latest posting something like, let's see this here, how do you go from this, which I'm not saying this is bad, it's just drawn very badly. It's a cool design, I like this, and I like where the sword is maybe going, but it's just not artistically rendered whatsoever. Let's have a look at that artist. As you can see, it's exactly what I'm talking about. Is everything just feels like, here's what I drew 5 minutes ago. This feels like, very rough. I guess it's animation, but at least it's something, right? But they've not turned this into a finished thing in any way, and these are all very cluttered. All you're seeing is the same thing again and again and again, all cluttered, all a mess, really hard to see anything. There's probably a good piece in here somewhere. This one's pretty cool, but I could barely see it from all the noise, right? This one's also pretty cool, like as a concept, but really badly rendered, really badly drawn. This is pretty cool. I like some things about this, but again, really hard to see. It's just full of sketches. So this guy's just a hobbyist. He's not looking for work probably, and he's just showing some things here, but it is just adding clutter to Artstation, and this is sort of better placed in DeviantArt or their own Folio, because Artstation, it's kind of like hard for people looking for work to get seen because all the noise. You don't want to be a noise maker here. You want to be someone who ends up in the trending zone. So how do you get to the trending zone? Well, you spend a lot of time in your piece. Now, I'm going to estimate how much time each of these guys took to make these, if they don't say. And yeah, so here's a weapon. And now I think this probably went through a couple of hours of sketch phase, working out what design would work, maybe an hour of drawing the design, and maybe an hour of making the final render here. So probably about 3 or 4 hours work just in that. Maybe here a little bit more for all the rendering of the gold and the lighting hitting here and things like that. So maybe 4 hours. This one, loads of really nice shapes and things here. This could have taken probably 10 hours or more, and extra for each color design. This one is so good. Look at the silhouette sort of here. I like the asymmetry and the rendering of this. Look at all these faces and everything. This could have taken at least 25 hours, probably longer as well. Same with this one. There's loads of sketches that you don't see as well, and I really wish people would show all the breakdowns. So you got your block out with colour, and then you get your final render. This is going to have taken at least 30 hours, maybe 40 hours. So it's like a week's worth of work if you're working for a company. Each day you come back, you're adding a bit more detail, and eventually you get to that point where it's worthy of putting on your folio. And that's why these get so many likes in little time, and they end up in the trending zone. So you get the point. If you're simply making Stickman, hey, look what I did yesterday, and it only took me 1 hour to make a Stickman, which is kind of an exaggeration, but well, let's just put it into how long it actually took. It took 3 seconds, right? There's 3 seconds worth of work. Now let's see, we're at 10:35, and I'll put in a bit more time, right? I'll draw as best the characters I can draw, with maybe like a minute or something. Now I do have a timer for these kind of things, and this looks quite good already. There's a good structure to it. So let's just say that took 30 seconds, so 10 times as long, right? And then if I took 300 seconds, which is what, 5 minutes, then you can see, right? So I'll go 10:36, let's go to 10:41 and see what I can make, and I'll try and make a similar thing. I'm going to start with base, right? Very loose. I'm only making notes and trying to catch a kind of silhouette here. I've got 5 minutes. Imagine that was 5 hours. I do want to be step by step methodical about managing my time. I don't want to rush the details. I don't want to be like, okay, well, there's the outline, I'm going to fill it in with loads of detail now. You want to make your way to that point. And I'm using a lot of knowledge of like anatomy studies and the things that have ended up in my head a little bit more clearly from studying life drawings and other people's work and things like that. I've got a slightly better idea of how things should be placed on the page and the shape and form of things from various studies. I also do need to top that up every now and again, and I feel my brain is struggling to know what a mark is going to look like. So what I end up is with all this noise of uncertainty, and that certainty will come through studies, right? So there's a lot of noise of, is it this line, that line, and it's coming through. I don't want to be erasing things. I want to keep those there as at least a guide. Right? If I'm spending loads of time erasing, I'm not really going to make progress. So I usually don't use an eraser. I'm just going to keep going with it. So 10:37, still some time left. I'm going to make some kind of spacesuit. I want it to look kind of feminine, so I'm thinking about feminine type shapes, maybe a bit of room for the breast and making it look a bit more elegant and rounded. I'm going to add a kind of rounded feature here. I quite like the marks that I made there, that was quite nice. I'm going to complement that shape there, and it's kind of looking like a female C2-3PO at the minute, but yeah, I'm going to put a little kind of shape at the side of the head and make a kind of female kind of robot android. Keep going with that, and I'm keeping very light with the strokes. I'm not ready to commit any of these lines just yet. I want to keep working on the whole shape, passing over it time and time again until I've made something that stands out. So 30 seconds compared to 3 seconds compared to 30 seconds compared to 3 minutes. You'll see, is it 3 minutes? What's 300 divided by 60? Can't do my maths right. Yeah, it's 5 minutes, sorry. So this would be 5 minutes, like that. I'm going to keep going with it to finish it off. See how far I can actually get. I'm going to make these thighs a bit bigger, and it's a little shape change here normally. The knee sort of sits over like that, and then you get the shin bone there, and the calf tucking in. Now, there's a few bits here that I may have to start using reference to remind me of how this is going to look, or I could put some boots on, but this is just a little bit hard for me to nail. I could start putting some clothes on it actually. Let's put some design on there. I'm going to make this kind of look like a lingerie sort of sexy android lady robot type of thing. I don't want it to look weird, and I think just adding those lines to the ankles it broke something. I need to be more elegant about it to complement the overall shape language. That is that. Yeah, some things do work and some things don't. These don't work anymore. I quite like all of this being a little bit like that is good. Now I'm going a little bit heavier with the pencil because I'm more certain about the overall shape of things. So this is 5 minutes to make, a sketch that may lead to a final design. But behind this is a whole lot of life drawing studies. I say a lot, I mean, it doesn't have to be tons, but if you spent about an hour a week doing a life drawing study, you would get much better. You would understand things. Your brain suddenly has proper reference embedded in there. And I don't mean just like going and Googling some images and having them sitting aside and trying to sort of imitate them that way. If you sit and you study something for 5 minutes, it kind of gets stored a lot easier. That's why we do these observation studies. They kind of stay in your brain for longer. Right, so that's pretty good. I'm just going to flip it horizontally, and we're at 10:41. There we go. So that's 5 minutes compared to 3 seconds, 30 seconds. So imagine that was you submitting work in 1 hour, and then that was 10 times that, 10 hours, and 10 times that, 100 hours. Oops. So typically, most people do between 10 and 100 hours before they submit to the folio, right? But you definitely don't show anywhere here as a finished piece. That's basically a work in progress, and you can show that in your breakdowns. So the breakdown of this would typically be that. Maybe not so much this one, but you get the idea that it's kind of leading up to something that would become a finished piece where you can really add rendering and lighting. And I could keep going with this and really kind of start pushing all sorts of things. So I could push where the shadows might be here, and I'm not too worried about getting out the lines. I've got a nice line piece there that I can use, and thinking about how the shadows are cast as well as where the core shadow is. The core shadow is the darkest area. Is it in shadow or is it casting shadow? Is it having shadow cast onto it, like this arm cast onto the side there? In shadow. I'm thinking about those kind of things, and maybe ambient occlusion where it's just a little bit more shading coming from localized shadowing, all the objects obscuring all the bounce light around, like the sky and any light that's been reflected off something else. So there's going to be a little bit of ambient light and occlusion, and then I can sort of neaten that up and eventually add colour to it and things like that, and then all the micro details that come into it, like there might be some little kind of bits here and bits like that, and maybe a little highlight catching here, becoming a little shadow in there, and start to do like gradients are really nice for a kind of reflective sort of look, like that, and maybe a little bounce light on the underside of things. So all of these things, they all add up to a finished piece, and you can see that it can all start to come together. But I would spend a lot more time in that, 5 minutes. Maybe the next sort of pass would be getting all the shadowing and things in, like the grayscale, and spend another 10-15 minutes on that before getting to the point where you're really kind of pushing the shapes and getting all the colour information in, and putting in the background is quite important as well because you want it to stand out. So that's going to be it for this kind of video about Folio and the quality of your work and spending time on things and thinking about, is it Folio worthy? Just compare your work with work that's on Artstation and think, do you want to be that bad or do you want to be that good? And push those boundaries, get past those points in your work where you feel you can't go any further, but push yourself beyond it, get feedback, put it on somewhere, ask someone to critique it. You need that information because you're stuck if you don't. And if you just restart again thinking it's the right idea, you'll come to the same hurdle, and if you don't jump it, you'll just be in the same point where you're asking for help. You might as well do it whilst you have something there and learn from that, and then that way you're always pushing yourself further. Okay, so catch you guys soon. Feel free to question me for any advice and feedback on your work, anything like that, and I'll be happy to do so. Thanks for watching. Bye.